most of us have some residual sleep debt to pay off, and we can't fully pay it off. But when you get the chance to sleep in and catch up on any sleep that you've lost, sleep in, please. So keep your sleep time as consistent as you can. But if for whatever reason you've got a hectic schedule and you just have to compress your sleep periodically, as we all do, let yourself catch up. But also to avoid your sleep timing from drifting later on subsequent days, because let's say that you're used to waking up at 6 a.m. and then on the weekend you sleep in until 10 a.m. What could happen is that for the next couple of nights you start going to bed later and then waking up later. On the days that you sleep in, after you've woken up, get outside as early as possible, do lots of physical activity, don't mess around with caffeine or stimulants too much, and just try and get back on track. And actually, just while we're on this subject, something that's very interesting is how to cope with sleep loss. And many people, they resort to using things like caffeine. But in my mind, one of the best strategies that people can use is actually taking creatine monohydrate. And this is related to how sleep is regulated. So the longer that you've been awake, the greater the pressure there is to sleep. And that's because of the buildup of adenosine in the extracellular fluid in your brain. And if you take creatine, then you increase your phosphocreatine stores and therefore the total pool of phosphates in your body. And by doing so, you can speed up the rate at which ATP, the energy currency of your cells, is resynthesized. So what that should then do is counter the increase in sleep pressure that you get after sleep loss. And there was a fascinating study that's published last year by Marcus Dvorak, and he basically found that if you take creatine and you add it to the chow of rats for 4 weeks, then the rats sleep less and they don't sleep as deeply. But interestingly, in humans, when they're sleep deprived, creatine seems to offset the deterioration that you see in things like cognitive performance, so people's ability to plan, carry out, and monitor tasks that are directed towards achieving a specific goal. But it also counters the negative effects of prolonged wakefulness on things like mood and balance and reaction time. So even though creatine might be having this effect on reducing the pressure to sleep and perhaps the total amount of time that animals do sleep, and you get lots of anecdotes about people having insomnia when they take creatine, what's fascinating about creatine is that actually, in general, it seems to be very good for our health. So what happens when somebody takes creatine? They gain a bit of lean body mass. Occasionally, they lose a little bit of fat mass. It has positive effects on mood. It has positive effects on various things related to metabolic regulation, so how well you process glucose, for example. And so even though if you restrict somebody's sleep artificially with an alarm or whatever, you see adverse consequences across the board, both in terms of their metabolic health, but also their cognitive performance. If somebody takes creatine, then maybe they sleep slightly less, but actually, if anything, you see beneficial effects on things like metabolic health and cognitive performance. So what I'm saying is, please sleep in when you get the opportunity. But if you're somebody who goes through a period of time when, for whatever reason, you can't get as much sleep as you need, if there's a supplement that you take, then I think that taking about maybe 2.5 grams of creatine for every 50 kilos of body mass. So what's that, 5 grams for?
Yeah, that 5 grams is kind of the average for maybe a 170-pound person. And that's
yeah.
And
That's a good starting point for people in that situation.
Welcome to the Collective Insights podcast, where we explore topics and technologies revolutionizing human well-being. Dr. Greg Potter, an expert on circadian rhythms, how they interact with nutrition, and how they interact with sleep, joins our own Dr. Greg Kelly for this episode. Today, we'll be discussing circadian rhythms and why they're important to our health. Make sure to subscribe to Collective Insights wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode.